Well, hello everyone. Thank you for tuning into this video, this Bible study on the Apostle Paul's third journey. You might be able to tell that it's a little bit dark in this video, a little bit dark. The lighting is a little dark, and that's because it's nighttime outside. It's dark outside. This is the first chance that I have gotten today to sit down and record this video, and it has been a long day for me, but it's been a good day. And I hope that you've had a good day as well. And I hope that you will think about some things with me from the Apostle Paul's third missionary journey. There's a lot of exciting things that happen on Paul's third journey. One of those things that happens is at the very beginning of his third journey. He goes to the city of Ephesus. And he's going to spend a lot of time there. In fact, later on, he's going to tell us that he spent about 3 years in the city of Ephesus. There was a church there that Paul loved very much, and they loved him. And in Acts chapter 19, you can read about Paul's time in Ephesus, and the whole chapter is devoted to his preaching there in that city. Let me tell you what happened to the Apostle Paul while he was preaching there in Ephesus. In addition to the preaching that he was doing, he was healing people. And there were people who were sick, and there were people who were diseased, and they had unclean spirits or demons who were possessing them, and they needed help. And they came to the Apostle Paul, and he healed them. And there were some others who saw what Paul was doing, and they said, "We want to try that too. We want to see if we can cast out demons like Paul does." And this is such an interesting story, because these men who came along to try to cast out the demons that were possessing people, like Paul was able to do, to cast out those demons, they tried to do it. And the demons spoke to those men, and they said, "Who are you? We know who Jesus is. We know who Paul is. But who are you?" In other words, those demons were saying, "We're not afraid of you. We're afraid of Jesus. We're afraid of Paul. But who are you?" And the scripture says that those demons attacked those men who were trying to cast them out. And the Apostle Paul just continued preaching, continued healing people, and doing his work. But while Paul was preaching, there were many people who were believing in Jesus. And they were turning away from idolatry and coming to believe in the Lord. Well, one of the idols that the people in the city of Ephesus revered very highly was a goddess named Diana. Her name was also Artemis. She went by both names. The people of Ephesus worshiped Diana. And they even made these little idols out of silver and gold and other metals in honor of this idol, Artemis or Diana. But you see, when all of these people started believing in Jesus, they stopped worshiping this false god, Diana. And the men who made those little idols, they were called silversmiths and goldsmiths. They didn't like that very much, because you see, they would make those idols out of gold or silver, and then they would sell them to people. And people would buy them so that they could put a little idol in their house and they could worship this idol. Well, the silversmiths, one of them in particular, whose name was Demetrius, he got really mad at the Apostle Paul. And he tried to stir up a mob so that they would attack Paul. And the scripture says that almost the whole city came together in this mob, and they were shouting for Paul to be arrested and killed. But Paul escaped. One of the city officials came along, and he realized very quickly what was going on, and he wasn't going to let this happen. And so Paul made his way out of Ephesus with his life. And I know he was thankful for that, because now he's got to go on to other places. Now, There's something else I want to tell you about that Paul does on this third journey, besides his preaching and his healing in Ephesus. You see, Paul's going to visit a whole bunch of different cities. He doesn't just go to Ephesus, he goes to a number of cities. And he goes to cities throughout the regions of Macedonia, and that would be cities like Philippi, Berea, Thessalonica. He goes to cities in the region of Achaia, and that would be places like Corinth. You've heard of the Corinthian letters in the New Testament. That's where the city of Corinth was. It was in Achaia. And on this third journey, Paul's got a mission that he's trying to do that's very important. A mission in addition to the preaching that he was doing. Paul's gathering up money. Well, what's he going to do with this money? Well, he's not going to use it for himself. He's gathering up this money so he can take it back to Jerusalem and he can give it to Christians there who are in need. You see, there are needy Christians in Jerusalem. I'm not sure what the problem was. I'm assuming that they were hungry. Maybe there was a famine in the land, or there was some other kind of natural catastrophe or some other kind of problem. But whatever it was, there were Christians in Jerusalem who needed money. They needed help. And so while Paul is traveling around, visiting city to city, going from church to church, he's gathering up money given by Christians to help the Christians back in Jerusalem. And so Paul is traveling and gathering these funds so that he can take them back to Jerusalem and he can help those needy brethren. Now, why is it that Paul would do that? Why would Paul travel all over that part of the world gathering up this money? I mean, couldn't they just send it in the mail? Or couldn't they just call their bank on their phone, or maybe get out their smartphone and send the money over through a wire transfer or something like that? No, of course they can't do that. How are they going to get this money there? Well, they can't just put it in an envelope and put a stamp on it and take it down to the post office. They've got to send it through messengers. They have to send men. They have to send people who will travel together and carry that money. And in Acts chapter 20, you can read verse 4, and you can see the names of a number of those men who traveled with Paul and with Luke as they were carrying that money back to Jerusalem. A couple of things I want to tell you about this money that was being gathered. First of all, Paul was gathering money from people who were Christians, but they were Gentile Christians. In other words, they were not Jews. You see, in Jerusalem, you had Jewish people who became Christians, and they were the ones in need. And you remember that for 1,500 years, ever since the Israelites came out of the land of Egypt, the Jewish people were God's specially chosen nation. The Gentiles, they were outsiders, and the Jews had nothing to do with Gentiles. But now in Christianity, Jesus has brought both Jew and Gentile together, and there is no more distinction between the two. And so now you've got a bunch of Gentile Christians who are gathering money to send to Jewish Christians in Jerusalem. And that was not a small thing. That was a wonderful thing that these Gentile Christians had done to try to help their Jewish brethren. Now, why would they do that? I think they did that because they loved them and they cared about them. You see, that's what Christians do. We love each other and we care for each other and we help each other when one another needs help. And so when somebody else has a need and we have the opportunity to meet their need, we should do it because we care about them and because we want to help them, because we feel that that's what Jesus would want us to do. And in fact, we know that that's what he wants us to do. And there may come a time one day when when we are the ones who are in need and somebody else can give and help us. And so Paul thought it was very important on this third missionary journey to gather up these funds, this money, for these poor saints in Jerusalem who needed help. It's always important for God's people to be there for each other and to help each other. And we need to be ready to do that anytime God presents an opportunity to us, like Paul did on the third missionary journey. Thank you for studying along with me today. I hope that you have a great day.